Will please come to order. I would like for everyone to stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's invocation is being offered by Pastor Murray Davis of Cornerstone Church. He is the guest of Council Member Karen Bennett.
Let's bow our heads. Father, I thank you for the people that serve. And I thank you that you give us wisdom and understanding and insight. God, I pray that we would seek first your kingdom and its righteousness, peace, and joy. And I pray that you would give wisdom to the men and women that serve this city, this county, and this council. You would allow them to have a spirit of discernment in how the results of the issues will affect generations to come. Allow us to be others-minded. Allow our hearts to be tender and our minds to be quick. God, I pray your blessing on this council. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of the members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for the adoption of the minutes from our March 20th meeting? Without objection, the minutes will stand approved as written. Madam Clerk, are there any messages from the mayor?
There are no messages from the mayor.
Thank you. We're now at the point in our agenda for elections and confirmations. Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. The Rules and Confirmations Committee heard the appointment of Mr. Brock Parks to the Beer Permit Board and voted 8-4 and none against to recommend to the full council, and I move his approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
There were two reappointments to the CATV Special Committee that are to be deferred. Ms. Crystal Hall Boone deferred until our 4/17 meeting, and Ms. Jackie Schrago deferred until our May 1st meeting. We did interview three candidates for reappointment that are here this evening: Mr. Jad Duncan, Mr. Richard McKinney, Mr. Robert Took. The committee voted 11-4 and none against to recommend their approval, and I move the approval of all three gentlemen.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
For the Board of Equalization, the reappointment of Ms. Jean Harrison will be deferred until April 17. The committee interviewed for reappointment Mr. Marshall Carr, Mr. Melvin Lowe, Mr. Trasben Stoner II, and the committee voted 11-4 and none against to recommend the approval of all three gentlemen to the Board of Equalization, and I so move.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Mr. Rodney Wilson is a first-time appointee to the Fire and Building Code Appeals Board. The committee voted 11-4 and none against to recommend his approval, and I move his approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
The two reappointments to the Vegetation Control Board, both of those reappointments were withdrawn.
Thank you, Councilman Stein. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing. Brock Parks, Chad Duncan, Richard McKinney, Robert Took, Marshall Carr, Melvin Lowe, Trasben Stoner, Rodney Wilson. On behalf of the Metropolitan Council, thank you for your willingness to donate your time and your expertise for our great city. Councilman Harmon, did you wish to be recognized?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I wanted to say to you all that we have some visitors here from Boy Scout Troop 77. They are here to earn their Citizenship in the Community Merit Badge. The Scout members are Jared McCrae, Gerard McCrae, and Guillermo Vargas. They are here with their Scoutmaster, Jerry Schwieger, and Tim Frizzell. And please make them welcome.
Thank you. We are now at bills on public hearing. Councilmember Dow. Exempt Southern Bells located at 5385 Mountain View Road from the minimum distance requirements for obtaining a beer permit.
Committee reports. Well, let me call for the public hearing first.
Okay. She didn't make the committee meeting, so she was going to. Okay. Please raise your hand if you're in support. Thank you. Please raise your hand if you're in opposition. Seeing no one in opposition, does anyone in support wish to speak? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Dow.
I'll have the committee reports.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, the Public Safety Beer and Regulated Beverages Committee deferred by rule.
Councilmember Dow.
May I request that we suspend the rules with a brief explanation?
Is there any objection to a suspension of the rules? Seeing none, Councilmember.
Thank you. I had a concurrent meeting at the same time and did not get there in time for the beer meeting, but I wanted to go ahead and see if we could have a vote tonight so that we can get the business open out in our district. We're excited about having a new restaurant and would like to get it open quickly.
Okay, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at Resolution 2012-203, appropriates $13,477,800 from the General Fund Reserve Fund for the purchase of equipment and building repairs for various metro departments. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Maynard.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Coles Fair and Farmers Market approved 5-4-0 against plus a toaster.
Councilmember Stein.
Rules Committee approved 11-4, none against.
Councilmember Tigert.
Convention and Tourism approved 4-0.
Councilmember Langster.
Health, Hospital, and Social Service approved 3-4-0 against.
Councilmember Jernigan.
Parks, Library, and Rec passed 7 in favor, 0 against.
Councilmember Berry.
Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, Housing Committee passed 3-4-0 against.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Public Safety approved 6-0.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approved 7-4-0 against, and I second that poster.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted 8-4-0 against. No toaster was in ours.
Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to approve 13-4, none against, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, we discussed this this evening in rules, and one thing that came to our attention, there's a little over $400,000 being appropriated for the Election Commission, and I'm sure they need that money as well as some other monies coming down the line. This just gave me a good opportunity to let everyone know that coming this August, the Election Commission has saw fit to close down 2 of the early voting sites that we're going to have for early voting. So the Belmead and I think the Bellevue sites will not be open in August. So, I hope, with this 4% money, different pot of money, but coming down the pike, I hope they put in enough in their budget to be able to do those 2 sites so we can give more people access to vote in the August elections.
All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now on the consent agenda, RS 2012-204 through 209. Are there any that anyone wishes to pull? RS 2012-204 approves an amendment. Councilman Claiborne, did you wish to be recognized?
There is an amendment on 204.
Hang on. I don't think it's in our packets.
Okay, maybe I got the wrong information.
There is one when we get to bills on second reading. The first one on second reading has an amendment.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
You think that's the one?
Possible.
Okay. We just don't have any in our packet for...
You may be referring to the analysis. I had recommended that if the intent of this resolution was not to increase the overall amount of the grant, that it should be amended. But I believe that the attachment to the grant clarifies that it's just a renewal with the existing terms. So both MDHA and the Historic Commission were in agreement to leave it as is.
Okay. RS 2012-204 approves an amendment to a grant from the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency to the Metro Historical Commission to perform an environmental review to determine potential adverse effects of historic properties. RS 2012-205 approves an amendment to a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metro Board of Health for the Healthy Start Initiative. RS 2012-206 approves an application for a grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to Metro Government for the acquisition and removal of 25 houses located in various floodway and floodplain areas in Davidson County. RS 2012-207 classifies public roads in Davidson County, Tennessee. RS 2012-208 authorizes Sandwich Stackers LLC to install, construct, and maintain an aerial encroachment at 216 4th Avenue North at Which. RS 2012-209 approves the election of certain notaries public for Davidson County. We will need committee reports from Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to approve RS 2012-204, -205, and -206 with a vote of 13-4, none against.
Thank you. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you. Health, Hospital, and Social Service voted to approve RS 2012-203 and 205 with a vote of 3-4, 0 against.
Thank you. Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted to approve RS 2012-204 and 208 by a vote of 8-0.
Thank you. Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works Committee voted to approve 206, 207, and RS 2012-208 by 8-0.
Thank you. Councilmember Stein.
Rules Committee voted to approve 209 by a vote of 11-4, none against.
Thank you. Councilmember Stein, is there a motion?
I would move to approve all the bills on our consent agenda. I wasn't sure if I was last or not.
There is a motion. Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on introduction and first reading. Councilmember Baker, did you wish to be recognized? Try again. Okay.
Sounds a little better. I'd like to ask for suspension of rules regarding a late file bill so that we can get it on the May 1st public hearing.
Second. Okay, the late filed zoning bill changes .91 acres from R6 to OL district for properties located at 200, 202, 204, and 206 Osceola Avenue. Councilmember Baker, is there an objection to a suspension of the rules? Seeing none, Councilmember.
I'd also like to suspend the rules on...
you want to make a motion on that?
I make a motion for approval.
Have a motion and a second. I see some requests to speak lights on. Do you wish to speak on Councilman Baker's bill? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilmember Baker.
I'd also like to suspend the rules to withdraw Bill 2012-125.
We have a motion to withdraw. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion to withdraw passes.
Thank you. Councilmember
Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I need to be marked abstaining on BL 2012-135 by Councilmember Pardue, and also 2012-136 by Councilmember Pardue. I have a direct conflict of interest.
So noted. Councilmember Tenpenny.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Bill 2012-126, we'd like to withdraw that bill.
Okay, it's an ordinance adopting a vehicle impound policy for metropolitan government. Councilman, you want to make a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I make a motion for withdrawal.
Have a second. All in favor of withdrawal, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Is there a motion for the approval of all other bills on first reading? Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on second reading. BL 2012-118 authorizes the Industrial Development Board to negotiate and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes for the benefit of the proposed water and snow park to be located at the intersection of Riley Parkway and McGavick Pike. Councilmember Claiborne.
Committee reports, please.
Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted to approve as amended, 16-4, none against.
Thank you. Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted to approve 8-0, and I would move for approval.
Do you need to move an amendment first?
Yes. There is an amendment. Mr. Cooper, you want to explain the amendment?
Yes, the amendment deletes the performance requirement included in the bill that Gaylord and Dollywood retain a Nashville area general contractor. There were some legal issues associated with such local preference provisions, and it could also have a negative impact on Nashville area contractors who are seeking to do business in other cities due to the reciprocity provisions in some other cities.
And it should be noted that the request for this amendment came from the industry, came from the building and trades industry. So with that, I would move the amendment.
We have a motion and a second. I have folks that wish to speak. Do you wish to speak on the amendment? Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, I said this in finance yesterday as well. It came from a part of the industry. Not all of the industry is requesting this. The workers in the industry are not requesting this. But I think we can get there from speaking with the Gaylord representative and Dollywood representative. I think they're cognizant of, we sold the convention center as a stimulus package. For the most part, it has been a stimulus package for the city, but there has been some areas, of trade down there that they have brought in a lot of workers from out of state to do the work, and people in our area didn't get a chance to do those jobs. I think discussing it with Dollywood as well as Gaylord, I think they're very aware, but I think we need as a body to look down the road to, making sure that we have some mechanism to check what workers are working at a site in which we're giving government dollars. A lot of people are saying, well, it's not a government project. Well, everyone's saying, well, nothing's on it right now. I can assure you, your home right now, if you build an addition on your home and make it a better home, we're going to charge you more property taxes on it. There's no doubt about that. So it's kind of hard to tell someone out in my district that, hey, we're going to, not charge these folks property taxes for a certain number of years, and they're not we at least need to make sure some jobs are going to people in our community. And I think we just need to find a mechanism where we can check, addresses, zip codes or something of the workers that are on the job. And the folks who are involved in this, I've been very pleased with their willingness to try to find a mechanism. But beyond this project, we need to do that in the future so, we don't get the same situation we have at the convention center currently where the Convention Center Authority lost a lawsuit in the lower court. So they decided they would appeal it to a higher court so they wouldn't have to give the certified payroll addresses of where the workers are working from currently. So, they're going to draw this out until the place is built and there's no more jobs for our local folks. So I just want this body to be cognizant of that so in the future this doesn't happen again and we have a better mechanism of checks and balances.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. As we discussed yesterday in Budget and Finance, the intent behind this initial component of the agreement was to recognize how important it is to have local commitment and local jobs. And I commend all of the parties that tried to put that in. Obviously, we can't because of some legal reasons that Mr. Cooper just outlined. But this is amendable on third reading, and I commend Councilmember Mitchell for pointing out that we all need to come together, all the parties, and come up with some accountability measures that we can include as part of this agreement to make sure that we are recognizing that we are giving this to local folks and local folks are getting jobs. And so I will commit to bringing an amendment before this body, before third reading, for consideration so that we can look at some accountability measures after we've had some good discussion with the industry and the administration so that we can move this forward. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Councilman Claiborne.
And I would move the bill as amended.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Stites.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I don't speak often, and I hope to not make it a habit, but I do have a problem with, again, we're given tax incentives for companies to move here. I want to be sure, the most important thing I say tonight is that my appreciation and adoration of Dolly Parton is not called into question. I actually have her latest album, Backwoods Barbie, on my iPod, and I'm proud of that. But I'm going to support her with my own money and not with somebody else's. I think that we need to take a look at our economic impact study that we have. It says 40% of visitors are coming from outside the state, and yet there's no data that explains how that figure was created. And potentially you guys have that data and can share that. It says almost 2,000 jobs are going to be created just in the construction phase for a $50 million project, which is way disproportionately disproportionate to what we have on our convention center. And then it says 762 jobs will be created, and yet it doesn't mention anything about cannibalizing other jobs at other water parks in Nashville. I think there are a lot of concerns that need to be addressed. A lot of if on the open market they want to come in and they want to compete fairly with other water parks, that's great. But I don't think that we should be charging other private investors that have water parks 100% taxes so that we can then turn around and essentially subsidize a new water park. And for those that would say this is new money, this is money that we would have missed otherwise, I think it's important to note that we charge a certain rate of taxes for a reason, because we offer a certain level of services. And so if we don't need to be charging at that level, let's lower it for everybody. But I would like to commend Wiltshire for the excellent job in what I think the clawback provision to ensure that certain jobs are created, a certain number of jobs are created, a certain dollar investment is made. I think it makes bad policy better, and I thank you for that. But just these are really difficult for me to support because they are not transparent, they're not fair, and it's an unsustainable policy, I think. Thank you.
Councilmember Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I, too, want to raise some questions about this bill. I want to tell you what the people in my district are saying, because they're getting media input that there's going to be a property tax increase. We don't know whether there is or not. We haven't seen the mayor's budget, but I can assure you that the last thing we need to be doing is giving tax incentives to other individuals and then turn around and raise property taxes on people that are going to have to take $20 out of their grocery bill to add to their house payment every month so they can make the house payment. Talking about this bill, the total amount of the property tax abatement is over 12 years for $5.8 million, basically $500,000 a year. That's what it comes to. It states that the property taxes would amount to approximately $371,300 annually after construction is completed, compared to the $194,000 we're generating now. I'm assuming that's what we're going to get, and we're going to forego the other $500,000 that we would have got, which would have been closer to $900,000. There again, we're sitting here with our everyday working people like I see sitting here in front of me in this council that are going to pay more property taxes if they come with a property tax hike and pass it, which this body will have to deal with. I struggle with doing this. I struggle with the concept. And I'll use a couple of examples that are near and dear to me. Ben Freeland is a tremendous supporter of the Southeast Davidson County area. Nobody gave him a tax incentive. He took all the risk. He's bought a lot of land out there. No one's given him tax incentives to go forward. There's other businesses that we have out there that would take a tax increase or a tax incentive if they could get it. And we could go on and on and on. What we are doing as a body when we pass this is we are selectively choosing who will succeed and who won't. And it's wrong. It's the wrong thing to do. Last but I guess not least, there was a bullet point in here that says that there was a guarantee that they would invest at least $50 million in Davidson County, $20 million by 12/31/2014, $40 million by 7/1/2015, $50 million by 7/1/2020. I don't know what that means. And how do we quantify that? How do we know that that's really going to happen? I'm going to tell you, I am a big fan of Gaylord. I think that a lot of our destination venue that we have in Nashville is because of Gaylord Entertainment being in this town. And I am truly a big supporter, but I also believe in doing what's right. And I follow my constituents' direction. So I'm going to end it here, but I'm going to tell you I'm struggling with this bill, and I will not support this bill. Thank you so much, Madam Chairman.
Councilmember Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Rarely will I have to go back a few years and talk about something, but I can't pass this up, and it's rare that I might say something that the Tennessean actually had an editorial on this morning. For those young council members who are here, if you go back to your neighbors and go to neighborhood meetings and things, and you ask them what they miss and what they wish we could have done, and let me just tell you now that it was the blame of why Opryland is gone was placed on metropolitan government and placed on this council. And having been there during that period of time, every meeting that I go to that has anything to do with Opryland, people my generation and a little below, but the folks that paid for the passes and went, they want to know, can't y'all get anything like Opryland back? And there's a ton of people that are mad to this day at Opryland and will continue to be because Opryland's not there anymore. That's kind of what the editorial had to say this morning in the Tennessean. I hadn't given that much thought, but let me assure you there are a ton of people in this city that think that we ought to have something like Opryland and wish that it was back, and we'll be glad to see something like that for families and here in Davidson County. Regardless of how we get it, what we do, they just want something like that back and wondered why we, meaning this council, ever got rid of it, which it wasn't our fault that it left, but we had gotten that blame through the years. I'm glad to be a part of trying to get something like old Opryland back in Nashville. Thank you.
Councilmember Glover.
I too have heard in my district some concerns about large business and abatements, but I took and I asked for a request to actually look at property taxes as collected from each one of our districts. And when I take it and I break down and I look at the abatement that's actually being offered here, what this really means for the hospital deal and for this deal with Gaylord is if we refunded the money to each of the households in Davidson County, it'd be about 13 cents a month that we'd be refunding on this abatement deal. Yet when the park is open and it's operational, it will generate somewhere in the neighborhood of about $4,466 a day in just sales tax revenues that will be coming into Nashville. And so I too am glad to see the park come back in. I too am glad to see that jobs will be created. I think that's what we're about. And so I will stand in support of this. Thank you.
Councilman Scott Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a young man, selling ice outside of the Grizzly River Rampage and the Rock and Roller Coaster. I hear the remarks. They missed the parking area. We should have never let it leave. And I want to tell people, looking at the stats of this poverty report, you know whose district needs the jobs? My district. I stand in support of this bill because it's going to bring much needed jobs back to Nashville. And more importantly, I want everyone to focus on right here is you got to do stuff to it. You got to attract bees with honey. You got to attract people with honey. We can't use a stick all the time here in Metro government. And I understand the needs. I know that there's some concerns, and my colleagues are very smart. They pointed out great concerns with this. However, though, we need the jobs. And more importantly, right now, our teachers, our students, and our high school students need a place to work that's seasonal. And when the doors of Opryland were open, most of my teachers work there during the summertime and during the spring. A lot of my friends work there in high school. And right now, our young people are in need of jobs right now. So I'll yield the rest of my time, but I want to thank my colleagues for supporting this bill. And I also want to thank those who have positive criticism for the bill, but I'm rising in support of this.
Councilmember Tiger.
Thank you, and this is an interesting conversation. The previous administration, for 8 years, we offered no incentives to businesses. And I would turn to each of you all and ask you, would having Nissan located in downtown Nashville be good for our economy? Or is it better for our economy to have it in a suburban county? We had an administration that for 8 years refused to negotiate with businesses who wanted to be in this county, and Nissan is a prime example of the unwillingness to talk and negotiate and to be flexible for the benefit of the entire community. We now have an administration that will offer incentives, reasonable incentives, when it means the betterment of our community. And Nissan was ready to sign a contract in downtown Nashville, but for the lack of one minor incentive. And if you'd like me to have the State Economic Development Commissioner who was there at that time, who can tell you and verify these facts, I'd be happy to do so. But to see these other businesses that would have been huge for our downtown and our community flee over the county lines does not do any good for our public school system, our economic development base. So I think Councilman Stites is onto something. Councilman Garrett and I talked with Matt yesterday, and I think there is a need for us to look as a body and as an administration, as a community, toward those Ben Freelands and other small business people to see if they're willing to create additional jobs and bring additional development, that we have a sustainable policy and procedure that would allow small businesses to also tap into these resources of Metro government when it benefits the entire government. So that's something I hope that we can take a look at very, very seriously as a body and as an administration here in the upcoming months and come forward with a policy that does make sense for small businesses. But I tell you what, for 8 years, businesses went everywhere but Nashville. And we didn't benefit, and we're suffering the consequences now. This makes sense. If you look at the numbers, this makes sense. I commend the administration for their efforts.
Councilmember Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. You know, I was sitting there and listening to the comments, and I just happened to chime in on this one because, you know, I'm not going to compare my longevity with Timothy Garrett over there. But, you know, I've sat over the years and watched businesses come into Nashville. And I can tell you, folks, if the businesses had not come into Nashville, we would never properly been able to go 7 years without a tax increase. That's where it comes. Now, to give it more visual, last week, a couple weeks ago, we were sitting downtown, and I've heard the comments about giving Bridgestone Arena all this money, and I think it was in the papers not long ago. We were sitting down there, and I happened to look out the window, and I kept telling the group with me, said, look, fellas, look. There was actually a Brinks money truck, which Marty has the pictures of it because I sent them to him. A Brinks money truck driving up on the sidewalk, backing up to the door, putting money in the truck. Then after it left, it parked on the edge of the street, and guess what happened? An 18-wheeler bill truck pulled up right behind it. So I took the picture and sent it to Marty and said, look, Marty, the bill truck represents money in, the Brinks trucks represent money out, and not a nickel on that truck was taxpayers' dollars because it never had a chance to be circulated. And so when I look at stuff like that and look at the money circulating in Nashville, you can't tell me that giving a company small incentives to sit there and generate that kind of money that feeds families downtown, and I was talking to some people downtown, they're feeding all kinds of families. When you realize how many people downtown doing the NCAA and all those big events, they are feeding families. They're giving people jobs. Yes, it's wise to give incentives to people who are going to make that kind of contribution to Nashville and its citizens. So Marty, if you need to distribute that picture I was telling you about, but I really support this bill simply because I've seen bills like this work. I've seen the bills even at the LP field, when you look at the number of people running around downtown, leaving money in this town, and they're already saying 30% of the people that come in here are not Nashvillians, I don't see nothing we got to gripe about, folks. Pass the bill.
Councilmember Evans.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I don't actually have a comment on the bill, but Councilman Tiger mentioned some information about the Nissan relocation. Could you share the information that you have? Because I'd be real interested to see that when it is available.
Shaking his head, yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bedning.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I know many of you own businesses. I own a business myself. And unfortunately, my business is architecture and residential design. And with the downturn in the economy, it was very hard to compete. So with my partner, we had a long conversation about how to remain competitive, and we realized that they are charging 100% of our fee wasn't getting us any jobs. So we had to start looking at the market and to figure out what the price was at the time to be able to close on these deals that we very much wanted. And I know people tend to talk about we should manage the city like a business, and we end up realizing that 40% of something was better than 100% of nothing. And so we adjust our fees to where we could be competitive. And I think this deal is a way to get some money into the coffers to help people not to have to pay more in taxes. Any money that we bring into the coffers is going to be lowering the pressure that will increase the revenue for the city. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that let's follow the path of many businesses in Nashville that are trying to find incentives to close on deals, and let's close this deal.
Councilmember Baker.
Previous question.
We have a motion for previous question. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question passes. We're now back on the bill as amended. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-119 authorizes the execution and filing of notice of land use restrictions for certain real property owned by Metro adjacent to 18th Avenue North. Councilmember Langster.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted 8-0 to approve.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approved 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember McGuire.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 16-4, none against.
Councilmember Langster.
Move for approval, please.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-120 authorizes the execution and filing of notice of land use restrictions for certain real property located within the right-of-way of Korean Veterans Boulevard between the Cumberland River and the CSX Spur Track. Councilmember Claiborne.
This is the substitute bill. Need to move the substitute bill.
Let me get a committee report. Councilmember Hunt.
Madam President, Public Works passed 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember McGuire.
Budget and Finance voted to approve as substituted 16-4, none against.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted 8-0 to approve as substituted, and I would move the substitute.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the substitute. Councilman Duvall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a couple clarifications I would like to inquire about. I wasn't able to attend a committee meeting. Mr. Claiborne, if you don't mind answering a couple of as I understand it, that this is the soil is contaminated. It says with arsenic, lead, other polyromatic hydrocarbons and concentrations that exceed EPA regional screening levels. And my question is, as an environmentalist, why are we not cleaning this up? And wouldn't this qualify for super funding? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in 1986 we formed super funds under federal mandate, and the state formed such. And couldn't we apply for such money to make that cleanup possible? Or is this, am I totally on a limb on the wrong tree?
The sites have been cleaned up and remediated. All this does is file a notice with the Register of Deeds that we're not going to mess with that site. We're not going to dig it up and disturb the remediation efforts that were done without getting approval of TDEC. So the TDEC has signed off on the soil capping that has been done, and the property has been remediated from an environmental standpoint. We're just agreeing that we're not going to disturb it without TDEC's approval.
Okay, now I appreciate the clarification. I didn't understand the bill. Thank you, and I apologize, Bill.
We have a motion and a second on the substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Substitute passes. Councilmember Claiborne.
And I would Move the substitute bill.
He's a motion to move the bill as substituted. We have a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next is BL 2012-121, amends the Metro Code to exclude passenger vehicles that solely provide transportation to and from a parking facility and the airport. Councilmember Johnson.
Committee report.
Councilmember McGuire.
Budget and Finance deferred by rule.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Public Safety deferred by rule.
Councilmember Baker. Sorry. You didn't meet, so you don't have a vote. Councilmember Johnson.
Okay, I move to defer indefinitely due to the transportation study that's currently taking place.
We have a motion and a second for indefinite deferral. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-122 approves an extension to the term of the cable television franchise held by Comcast through May 5, 2013. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Berry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Personnel Public Information Committee voted 3-4-0 against.
Councilmember McGuire.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 16-4, none against, and I move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-123 amends the official street and alley acceptance and maintenance map by abandoning a portion of alley number 1863. Councilmember Tenpenny.
Yes, ma'am. Call for committee reports.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted 7-4-1 against.
Councilmember Harrison.
Traffic and Parking voted to approve 7-4 and 0 against.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approved 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember Tenpenny.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Bedning.
Yes, ma'am. I had voted against it on the committee. I'm going to abstain now.
Okay. So noted. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, motion passes. Next is BL 2012-124, abandons of 4 stormwater easements for properties located at 3711 and 3715 Crestview Drive and 1 University Park Drive. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted 8-0 to approve.
Councilmember Hunt.
Public Works approved 8-4-0 against.
Councilmember McGuire.
Budget and Finance voted to approve 16-4, none against, and I move approval.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now at bills on third reading. BL 2011-173 amends 65.74 acres of the Davenport Downs SP District for properties located at 4334 Maxwell Road and Maxwell Road unnumbered east of Flagstone Drive to permit 207 single-family residential units where 318 residential units were previously approved. Councilmember DeBall.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There is a substitute amendment that I would like to move, please.
Is there have a motion and a second, Councilmember?
Yes, we needed to amend some of the points that came through with the original amendment to make the development congenial to the developer and the property owner. Basically, we want to build a subdivision, so I made some minor changes to help create the need, or fulfill that need. So I'm going to need 27 votes on this bill. I'm asking that you support it. They're basically minor changes, but they're common sense. One was the where we had a trigger to do Maxwell Road, which needs to be paid from Laverne, Couchville all the way back to the subdivision. And we want that to happen, but the original amendment required that to happen on the front end, and we felt like once there was 100 lots built, then that would give the developer an opportunity to fund that building. And basically, the amendment was putting about $1 million up front of strain on anybody who wanted to come in there and build that subdivision. So I made those amendment changes. So I'm going to move for approval.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. Councilmember Berry, did you have a question on the amendment?
I just had a question about 27 votes. Can you explain?
The Planning Commission approved the bill with a number of conditions, and Councilman Duvall, and this amendment has incorporated most of those conditions, but as he said, there was a change to the condition regarding the infrastructure so that it would be bonded on the front end, but would not have to be completed until after the 100th lot is platted. And it also removed a requirement that the developer set aside or donate property for a school site. So since it's different from the Planning Commission bill that was approved, we need to make sure it gets 27 votes.
On the amendment and the bill?
Just on the bill, not on the amendment, but as amended.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The amendment passes. Councilmember Duvall?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to move the bill as amended, please.
We have a motion and a second, and we'll need a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machines and tally the vote.
32 aye, 1 no, 1 abstention.
Motion passes. Next is BL 2011-74, changes 9.52 acres from SP District to AR2A zoning for property located at Maxwell Road Unnumbered, east of Flagstone Drive. Councilmember Duvall.
Thank you again, Madam Chairman. This bill, all committee reports are in. I'm just going to ask for approval. This bill basically is the company to the previous bill that you approved. It returns a big portion of that original subdivision back to another owner and back to an AR2A status. So move for approval, please.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-92 amends the Metro Code relative to the period of inactivity for nonconforming uses and for nonconforming structures damaged by a disaster. Councilmember Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports.
Councilmember Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted 8-0 to approve.
Councilmember Dominy.
There is an amendment that I'd like to offer that Councilman Holloman and myself have worked on. John, could you explain that?
The amendment restricts the bill to make the 60-month window in which to reconstruct only applicable to properties that were damaged in the 2010 flood. So those properties would have 60 months in which to rebuild. And it also extends the tolling provision during litigation to apply to residential properties as well as commercial properties.
That's the amendment. I move the amendment.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Amendment passes.
Move approval of the bill as amended.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passed. Councilman Holloman, did you wish to speak on this?
No.
Okay. Motion passes. BL 2012-106 changes 8.9 acres from R10 to SP zoning for property located at 2158 Antioch Pike to permit an assisted living and/or nursing facility. Councilmember Dominy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move for a one-meeting deferral.
I need a committee report from Councilman Claiborne.
Planning and Zoning voted 8-0 to defer one meeting at the sponsor's request.
Councilmember Dominy.
I move for one-meeting deferral. Thank you.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. One meeting deferral passes. BL 2012-110 amends the Metro Code to permit the electronic filing of annual disclosure statements and benefits reporting statements. Councilmember Jernigan.
Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2011-111 amends the Metro Code to enable the use of curb and street surface painting to designate areas where parking is prohibited or a parking time is imposed. Councilmember Allen.
I'd like to move for approval with a brief explanation, please.
Have a motion and a second. Councilmember Allen.
Would just like to remind people this is simply another tool that enables Public Works to designate non-parking areas in addition to signs, which is now the standard way. This is in the standards book. It's nothing new. Other cities do it. It's just another tool for them, and I would ask for your approval.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-112 authorizes the acquisition of 2 sewer easements for properties located at 7218 and 7220 Nolensville Road. Councilmember Hunt.
I believe all the committees are in, so I move for approval, please, ma'am.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-114 amends the Metro Code to allow beer distributors to have 2 places of business under certain circumstances within Metro government. Councilmember Harrison.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I believe committees are already in, so I move for approval.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-115 amends the Metro Code to prohibit smoking on hospital grounds and within public right-of-way of the vicinity of hospital entrances. Councilmember Allen.
I'd like to move for approval with a really brief explanation, please.
Have a motion and a second. Councilmember.
Again, just to say this was a motion that was requested by the hospitals. It gives them a tool to extend their non-smoking distances. The 3 hospitals that specifically asked for that have designated their own distances. It simply gives them a way to extend a non-smoking area out to sidewalks in front of their entrances for the safety of their patients, and I ask for your approval.
Councilmember Langster.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, I rise to support Councilmember Allen's bill. She brought this bill to me early in the term, and she really did her homework. She really did her research. She communicated well with all 3 hospitals, and I am super impressed as her tenacity to work on this bill, and I urge everyone to vote in favor of it. Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. BL 2012-116 authorizes the Industrial Development Board to negotiate and accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to HCA, Information Technology and Services, Inc. Councilmember McGuire.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move approval.
Have a motion and a second. Councilmember Holloman.
Just need to be recorded as abstaining on this bill.
So noted. Councilmember Dow.
I need to be noted as abstaining also. Thank you.
So noted. Councilmember Duvall.
Again, I'm going to stand as a fly in the ointment here. We're giving tax rebates to businesses. I'm not going to stand here and argue the same thing I did with the Gaylord bill, but I can tell you I'm standing with the citizens in my district. There's no question about it. This, by the way, the HCA is going to be in District 33, and I'm all for HCA locating in District 33, but again, we're giving tax incentives to businesses that, do they really warrant those? There's several things in the bill that I'm concerned about. How we verify and substantiate the 155 full-time jobs. There's also in the analysis, and I really think you need to read the analysis, it is important to note that any full-time job, now that said any full-time job created in Davidson County and any new investment made in Davidson County after January of this year will count toward the HCA milestones, regardless of whether the jobs an investment or direct result of the new and expanded data center. Do you hear what I just read? I'm telling you, folks, that is not a good deal for us. There's no guarantee at all that those 155 jobs are going to come, new jobs from HCA. There very well may be transfers. And somebody else will create those 155 jobs. Some small businessman did not get a tax incentive in Davidson County. Thank you for your patience in listening to me.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Neighbor. I rise in support of this bill, and the reason why I'm speaking is because I want to thank the administration, most especially Mayor Dean, Mr. Wiltshire, and others who helped to make this possible. I'm also speaking on behalf of THAP, the Hickory Hollow Action Partnership Group, and Ben Freeland. They have all expressed overwhelming support for this bill, as well as neighbors within my community, because it is all about jobs. This is an economic stimulus for our area. It provides much needed activity within the Hickory Hollow Business District, and more importantly, it provides jobs in an area that needs it very, very much so. So again, I ask for your support on this legislation, and we appreciate all of the support that each of you are giving to the Hickory Hollow area.
Councilmember Dow, did you wish to be recognized?
Yes, thank you. I want to rise in support also of this bill. I have abstained from voting, but I think this is
I don't think you can speak if you're abstaining from voting. Councilmember Bedney.
I want to rise in support of this for the same reason I supported it before. It's always nice to get 100%, but like I said, 40% is better than nothing, and the people in the southeast of Davidson County really are excited about the changes coming to the NEO Cane Ridge area, and this is another investment in the area that is going to continue strengthening the change that is already happening. By the way, I invite you to drive by Cane Ridge area and Antioch, and you'll see the amazing change that's going on right now. So thank you.
Seeing no one else wishing to speak, we will need a machine vote. Madam Clerk, please close the machine and tally the votes.
29 aye, 3 no, and 2 abstentions.
Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Yay.